Welcome back, everybody. As an average at best FPS player, I haven't played many Call of Duties in recent years. Before Vanguard, the last one I spent much time with was Call of Duty World War II. I tried out Warzone and did a review of it. I'll link in the comments. Suffice it to say, Battle Royales aren't for me. However, I was excited for the World War II setting of Vanguard. Then I played and loved the beta, and now here we are. I can't say exactly why the most recent Calls of Duty haven't appealed to me. I've mentioned it before, I think I'm more of a Battlefield player in many ways. I'd rather play a support role or otherwise help my team in ways that don't require me to pwn the bad guy before he can pwn me. As you can see from my kill-to-death ratio in Vanguard, after around 5 hours in-game, I'm not good at that type of twitch reflex gameplay. Battlefield gives me other things to do than become some tryhard's next Teabag E. And that's probably because the movement in Call of Duty these days is more like each player character is an Olympic champion decathlete who has the reliability, determination, and adrenaline-proof steady hands of Gary Gordon and Randy Shugart. Mad props from a helicopter guy, by the way. But you know what? Even with my depressing kill-death ratio, my appalling team win-loss record, in which I'm genuinely disappointed, and my aversion to getting teabagged, I've absolutely loved Vanguard. But I also enjoyed Call of Duty World War II, so perhaps it's just that I'm particularly invested in this setting as opposed to whatever is going on in the other Call of Duty segments these days. Consider that the disclaimer that I may just miss the good old days of good guys and bad guys wearing clear uniforms, invading each other, and just generally being upfront about wanting to wreck each other's respective souls. So, Vanguard. I played it at the midnight launch, I streamed the entirety of the campaign over on Twitch, and I've been playing it frequently in those few moments when I'm not helping cover up the Rogue's clandestine adventures. While I haven't played many of the recent Calls of Duty, they're often recognized as the best feeling first-person shooters out there. Certainly compared to the other games I've played recently, the guns and shooting in Vanguard feel great. Sure, it's arcadey, no doubt there, this isn't a simulator by any means, but the weapons have what feels like an appropriate weight and kick, and they're just a blast to use. Pun intended. Each weapon features extensive and wholly unrealistic upgrades and unlocks, which keeps things fun. Heck, the starting assault rifle is the Sturmgewehr 44, which is a German rifle that was one of the most effective assault rifles of the Second World War. That gun has been a top-tier unlock in other games in the past, so it was clear they wanted people to have fun at the beginning. Weapons like the Thompson submachine gun and the Browning automatic rifle, two of my favorites, were unlocked within a few hours. Using those weapons will get you kill streaks which you can choose from and are both fun to use and often helpful to the whole team. Sure, I was on the receiving end of more kill streaks than I delivered, and the bombing mission perk is a little OP right now, but often you could avoid getting wrecked by those kill streaks just by hightailing it into a building. So you had at least some opportunity to avoid becoming a chunky ketchup stain smattered around the ground, nearby trees, and your colleagues. When combined with the tactical equipment you can choose from, such as an area jammer, and the perks you unlock while playing, there was a lot of strategy and planning on how to equip each of my loadouts. So, the shooting is fun, no surprise there, but what about the story? The campaign was nonsense, but it was well acted and gorgeous. Each of the soldiers' stories was quick and easy to get invested in. I did have a couple technical problems with the campaign though. The volume was a catastrophe for streaming as the game went from whisper silent dialogue to deafening explosions faster than NFT bros get sad when they figure out what they actually bought with that money. Plus, there's even a flying segment in Vanguard. That's right, we finally get to compare Battlefield and Call of Duty in a vehicle section. In Vanguard, you play for a while as an ace pilot who dogfights Zeros in the Pacific in a Dauntless. Now I know what you're thinking, being a viewer of this channel. Wait a second, Nodak. The Dauntless is a dive bomber. Yep, you're correct. You dive bomb 2 carriers and then shoot down around 9,000 Zeros in your Dauntless. You just gotta roll with it. Honestly, the magnificently modeled carrier hangar and the beautiful combat scenes with the Dauntless made me wish there was more to that story arc. Either way, the point of him flying a Dauntless was undoubtedly so the character would have a sidekick to bond with, eventually try to rescue, and of course, clearly and quickly explain the character's motivations. And yes, the pilot you play as is dauntless. So perhaps the choice of plane was more metaphysical, but I'm not willing to give that much credit here. I will point out that the more I get into PC gaming, the more I realize how little games are optimized for AMD systems. I love my Ryzen 9 and Radeon 6800 XT with 128 gigs of RAM, just like I loved my Ryzen 7 and Radeon 5700 XT Thick 3 with a nice even 40 gigs of RAM before it. But the screen tearing people observed on stream was native to the game for me as well. Just like how several of Microsoft Flight Simulator's recent updates just didn't work for AMD users like me, my experience wasn't as silky smooth as it should have been given the machine I'm running. No amount of settings tweaking took care of it for me, and I'm sure that will eventually get sorted out in a patch. Ultimately, it didn't impact my enjoyment of the game, but the streams were already nightmares as I tried to balance the sound, so when combined with the graphical hiccups, if you're particularly attuned to cutscene smoothness, it might be a little rough if you're on an AMD setup. Bored with good old-fashioned Axis and allies? Well, how about some zombies? My thoughts on the zombie mode? I just don't play zombie modes in games like this. It's certainly not because the number of helicopters brought down by swarms of the undead in every single movie about zombies is infuriating. You just have to fly high enough they can't jump on the aircraft. It's not that hard. You need to rescue some fools? Ropes. Use ropes. And don't tell me that not all helicopters have ropes. In a zombie apocalypse, all helicopters everywhere should be fitted with ropes in the first 10 minutes of patient zero getting a little chompy chomp. Nope, it's nothing to do with that. I don't play these modes because I'm not sure who decided that it needed to be included in these games. It's an added feature that may be hugely popular, I don't know. The optimist in me says that standalone zombie games are very hit or miss, so including zombie games in this is a great shout out to zombie shooter fans. But the cynic in me says these game modes are quick and easy to add and just serve as another base gameplay mode that is distinct enough from the main multiplayer for them to sell separate loot boxes, upgrades, and experience packs. My cynical self sees it as just another mechanism for recurrent monetization that requires relatively little additional coding. So I'll just throw out there that Vanguard was fun even without it. And most of that fun is thanks to the multiplayer. That was the whole reason I got the game. The multiplayer beta was some of the most fun I've had in an FPS in years. Everyone was low ranked, none of us seemed to know what we were doing, and it was a great experience all around. Interestingly, with few exceptions, that's been my experience with the launch game too. Sure, I've been steamrolled by meta tryhards sprinting all over the map with shotguns and throwing knives, but for the most part I've felt like I've had a chance in most encounters. Plus, you can't mention COD these days without talking about the notorious player base. I'll tell you how to avoid that issue. You can select what multiplayer game modes you want to play. Only select Patrol and Domination. Don't go anywhere near Deathmatch, and even Team Deathmatch might be a little iffy. Patrol is a game mode where each team is trying to capture the same point that is moving around a map. On the other hand, Domination tasks each team with capturing and holding 3 stationary points around the map. Both modes require teamwork and maybe even a little bit of strategy to win. Does your team hold 2 of the 3 domination points? A savvy team will sit tight and not capture that 3rd point so the other team keeps spawning on the same side of the map. Once your team starts to capture that 3rd point, the bad guys are now spawning behind you near the point at the other end of the map. A little coordination can go a long way. Sure, I still get rocked by someone power sliding into a room under my gun, but that type of movement is just not something I'm ever expecting. And I'm old school enough to know about Titanfall 2's absurdly excellent movement long before Apex Legends. Heck, I even knew about Titanfall 1. Oh geez, speaking of which, I better wrap this up so I can grab my early afternoon nap. I'll need to head out for that early bird dinner and the senior discount at Denny's here pretty soon. Is there still a toxic group in Vanguard pestering you? Well, I haven't run into many in those game modes, but okay, mute TeamSpeak and don't listen to them. Voila. Alright, I get it. All the fancy reviewers and commentators seem to enjoy hating on Call of Duty these days. Heck, I generally do too. What you have to understand is that people almost always take the path of least resistance. It's easier to make fun of something for an absurd story that minimizes the actual events of something like World War II than it is to praise something for being more of the same, even if that same is still fun. Perhaps there's an element of reliability there that I give too much weight in my review. Maybe I don't need annual exponential progress in my video games because my backlog already goes back 20 plus years. Heck, I'm just looking forward to finally getting around to playing that new Zelda game when I have some time someday. You know the one, it looks really cool. The one with the ocarina. I'm really looking forward to playing that someday. Thanks for watching.